Noseless limbo. Most afterlives in the wizarding world would follow a pattern. You move on, stick around as a ghost, or immortalize yourself as a talking painting with strong opinions. Voldemort, however, manages the rare achievement of reaching none of these categories. His fate is unique, a state where the afterlife can't welcome him, and that's because he destroyed the very thing that would have carried him into one, his nose. Oh, sorry, I mean his soul. After splitting his noseless soul again and again, Voldemort didn't create immortality. He created instability. Every Horcrux took a chunk out of who he was, until he became less he who must not be named and more he who is barely loading. By the Battle of Hogwarts, he wasn't a wizard with a damaged soul. He was a damaged soul borrowing a wizard body like it was rental equipment. That's why the fragile creature Harry sees at King's Cross isn't symbolic or artistic. It's Voldemort's final self. A fragment too incomplete to return, too damaged to move on, and too unbalanced to become a ghost. While Harry receives a choice, Voldemort receives nothing. So, what happened when Voldemort dies? He doesn't cross the veil. He doesn't become a ghost. He doesn't dissolve peacefully. His soul collapses into eternal non-progression, stuck, unfinished, unable to enter any afterlife. Ironically, he did achieve immortality, just the glitch version, a forever limbo where even the afterlife says, "Not my problem," and whatever dust remained of him in the Great Hall, Filch definitely swept that up. Quietly humming, another one bites the dust. While Voldemort broke his afterlife entirely, other witches and wizards went, "No problem. I'll just upload myself into a portrait." Magical portraits. Magical portraits are one of the wizarding world's most misunderstood forms of afterlife. They look alive, hold conversations, give advice, and occasionally shout at students, usually in a tone that suggests they haven't had a quiet day since 1492. But despite all that personality, portraits are not the souls of the deceased. They're carefully crafted echoes, part magical artistry, part memory imprint. The more time the subject spends with the painter, the more convincing the portrait becomes, which explains why some portraits are wise mentors, and others are basically decorative gossip. This is why Hogwarts headmasters sit for their portraits long before they die. They train them, teaching phrases, preferences, and the appropriate level of condescending eyebrow raise. When Dumbledore's portrait advises Snape in Deathly Hallows, it isn't Dumbledore's soul speaking, it's a perfectly trained replica running on what can only be described as high-powered magical personality software. Portraits can think, interpret situations, and move between frames to socialize. Yes, even paintings have a better social life than most students during exam season, but they lack true consciousness, emotional depth, and the ability to grow beyond their programmed selves. In the end, magical portraits are the wizarding world's version of legacy intelligence. Not spirits, not ghosts, but beautifully enchanted reminders that wizards really, really hate being ignored, even after death. Ghosts. In the wizarding world, becoming a ghost isn't the natural path after death. It's more like choosing the eternal trial version of existence. Wizards are meant to move on beyond the veil, but some refuse. According to J.K. Rowling, a ghost is the faint imprint of a witch or wizard too afraid to leave the living world. Someone whose fear, guilt, or unfinished business keeps them hovering around like a magical emotional backlog. It's not enlightenment. It's not transcendence. It's basically the afterlife equivalent of refusing to log out. Ghosts keep their memories, personality, and appearance, but everything is muted, like someone turned their life down to 20% brightness. They can't eat, drink, or enjoy physical sensations. Imagine being at the Hogwarts feast and not being able to taste anything. A nightmare. Their emotions are dulled too. Nearly Headless Nick explains in Order of the Phoenix that becoming a ghost is a sad choice, not a reward. Which makes sense, considering Myrtle's entire existence is one long bathroom complaint thread. They glide past through objects and give off a cold aura that makes students shiver dramatically, but they cannot grow, heal, or change. Myrtle remains locked in her trauma. Nick remains eternally courteous and regretful. And importantly, Muggles can't become ghosts at all. Magical folk only, which is honestly for the best. The last thing Hogwarts needs is Vernon Dursley stomping around as an angry translucent tomato. And even among wizards, very few choose it. Most move on. Only those those who fear death more than eternal boredom stick around. Which honestly explains a lot about Hogwarts hallway traffic. Horcruxes. When we talk about types of afterlife, Horcruxes technically qualify, just not in the peaceful grandma sending love from the heavens way. This is the nightmare version, where instead of moving on, your soul gets split into pieces and attached to random objects like dark magical scrapbooking. Creating a Horcrux requires an act so destructive and unethical that it tears the wizard's essence apart, allowing a fragment to be anchored into something physical. From the creator's perspective, it's a kind of afterlife, but the worst imaginable. A half-existence frozen in time, reactive, obsessive, and emotionally stable only when compared to a mandrake on a Monday morning. A Horcrux fragment can't evolve or learn. It only imitates or manipulates. Tom Riddle's diary shows the best-case scenario, a sliver of Voldemort acting like a charismatic but deeply unhinged pen pal. Even then, it's not consciousness, just a magical screenshot of his personality at its most dramatic setting. Destroying a Horcrux requires powerful magic capable of breaking both object and essence. Things like basilisk venom, fiend fire, or Gryffindor's sword, the Swiss Army knife of plot resolution. Making several doesn't create multiple afterlives, it just traps the creator in multiple anchors. When Voldemort loses his physical form, these fragments keep him stuck in a disembodied limbo. Not alive, not gone, just eternally buffering. Echoes of life. Some afterlives in the wizarding world aren't really afterlives, they're echoes. Magical replays that feel real enough to make you do a double take. Priori Incantatem and the Resurrection Stone both summon figures of the departed, but neither brings back an actual soul. Think of them as the magical equivalent of voicemail, but emotionally charged and occasionally life-saving. During the graveyard duel in Goblet of Fire, Priori Incantatem forces Voldemort's wand to reveal its most recent magical history. Because the wand is tied to several tragic events, the figures that appear, Cedric, Frank Bryce, Bertha Jorkins, James, and Lily, show up as incredibly vivid imprints. They speak, they reassure Harry, and they even strategize. It's basically the most supportive group chat Harry ever had, except made of magical residue. Rowling confirms they aren't spirits, just echoes strong enough to act with surprising clarity. The Resurrection Stone, meanwhile, creates a different kind of apparition, calm, compassionate, and from beyond, but still not physically present. They can talk to you, comfort you, and offer guidance, but you absolutely cannot hug them, a fact that still annoys Harry and every fan who cried during that chapter. Both forms reveal the same truth. Magic can mimic presence and emotion beautifully, sometimes heartbreakingly, but it can't bring someone fully back. These echoes are powerful, comforting, and haunting, but they are still echoes. The King's Cross Realm. If the wizarding world has anything close to a real afterlife, it's the King's Cross Realm, a calm, glowing limbo that looks suspiciously like the prettiest train station makeover of all time. When Harry is struck by Voldemort's spell in Deathly Hallows, he doesn't meet a ghost or an echo or a magical replay. He steps into a radiant version of King's Cross shaped by his own mind, complete with better lighting than the actual station ever had. Rowling confirms this is a true between-world space, a place where consciousness remains whole and self-aware. And who's waiting there? Dumbledore, the real one. Not a portrait, not a memory, not a hologram running on nostalgia. Full Dumbledore. Wise, warm, cryptic, and sounding like he's been rehearsing profound quotes during his stay in the afterlife. Harry also encounters the damaged soul fragment connected to Voldemort, a tiny broken thing that honestly looks like it needs a blanket and several years of therapy. It's real too, representing what happens when someone's essence gets stretched thinner than a first year's excuses. King's Cross reveals something simple. Souls don't disappear, glitch, or hover unless forced. They move onward, unless, like Harry, they're offered a choice. Dumbledore can't follow him back. The platform marks the boundary. Life on one side, the great unknown on the other. And in classic Dumbledore fashion, he leaves that mystery beautifully unexplained. Pensieve memories. Pensieve memories look like afterlife moments, moving, talking, filled with people who feel strangely present, but they're really just hyper-detailed magical recordings. Think of them as the wizarding world's version of a memory projector, except you can physically walk inside the footage, which honestly feels like cheating at nostalgia. When someone extracts a memory, the Pensieve captures everything they perceived, including details they didn't consciously notice. That's why Harry can wander around Snape's or Slughorn's memories like a tourist who forgot he's inside someone else's brain. But there's no soul, no awareness, awareness, no, hey Harry, get out of my childhood, just data. The memories don't think, grow, or react. When they change, like Slughorn's edited memory, it's obvious, glitchy, and about as subtle as Gilderoy Lockhart rewriting his resume. Pensieve illusions may feel alive, but they're not a form of afterlife. They're 3D magical reruns, powerful, emotional, and occasionally intrusive, but never conscious. Inferi. Inferi are what happens when the afterlife looks at a situation and says, not my problem. They aren't ghosts, spirits, or forms of undeath. They're bodies with no soul, no mind, no personality, animated purely by dark enchantments, basically magical puppets with zero customer support. Because there's no consciousness inside, Inferi don't think or feel. You can shout, plead, or attempt emotional negotiation. They will respond with the enthusiasm of a broken statue. Their danger comes from perfect obedience. They swarm, block paths, and drag intruders where they really don't want to go. Voldemort used them in the Horcrux cave because, honestly, who wouldn't be scared of an entire lake full of afterlife dropouts? Unlike ghosts, Inferi tell us nothing about who the person once was. The soul has already moved on. What's left is just a magically animated shell. Their one big weakness? Fire. Turns out even creepy enchanted mannequins respect a good blaze. The veil. If the wizarding world has a physical doorway to the afterlife, it's the veil. The one mysterious place where passing on isn't symbolic, magical, or metaphorical. It's literal. Step through and you're gone. No respawn, no portrait mode, no ghost registration at Hogwarts. And no, the whispers aren't Hogwarts gossip. They're voices from beyond, heard only by those sensitive enough to pick them up. Luna, obviously. When Sirius Black falls through the veil, something extraordinary happens. He simply vanishes. No flash, no impact, no dramatic special effects. Just a seamless transition, as if he stepped onto a train platform going one way. Rowling confirms he does pass on, but the veil operates differently from any spell. It takes the physical form and the animating essence together, no separation required. The Ministry's unspeakables study it constantly, which is wizarding language for, we have no clue how this works, but it's definitely important. Whatever lies behind the curtain is inaccessible, irreversible, and extremely off-limits to the living. Unlike the Dementor's kiss, which removes the inner self and leaves the body behind, the veil does the opposite. It's a full-body crossing. Terrifying? Yes. Beautifully mysterious? Also yes. It's a literal doorway to the afterlife, quietly humming in the middle of the Ministry, whispering secrets no one alive is meant to understand. Petrification. Petrification feels like the wizarding world's version of an afterlife on airplane mode. When someone is petrified by a basilisk gaze, a cursed plant, or some other magical menace, their body freezes at the exact millisecond of impact. In this state, consciousness shuts down, the body stiffens, and vital functions slow to a magical near standstill. No thinking, no dreaming, no aging, no feeling, just waiting. It's basically the most extreme nap imaginable, minus the resting part. In Chamber of Secrets, victims survive because they only saw the basilisk indirectly, getting the safety mode effect instead of the permanent one. But here's the wild part. Without mandrakes, a petrified person could stay frozen forever. They wouldn't deteriorate or starve. They'd become a magical living statue, stuck outside the normal flow of time. Unlike ghosts who refuse to move on, or Inferi who definitely should have moved on, a petrified person's soul stays fully present, just unreachable. So, petrification isn't a true afterlife, but it is a soul in limbo, a life past, and a reminder that magic sometimes hits freeze frame a little too literally. The Dementor's kiss. If every other afterlife in the wizarding world represents some form of continuation, ghosts lingering, echoes replaying, portraits imitating, then the Dementor's kiss is the terrifying opposite, the total absence of afterlife. It's what happens when existence itself gets unplugged. When a Dementor performs the kiss, the person doesn't fall, vanish, or cross a mystical boundary. Their body keeps functioning, heartbeat, breath, reflexes, but the inner self, the spark that makes someone them, is drawn out and lost. Not moved, not transformed, not sent beyond, just gone. The most catastrophic system shutdown imaginable. Rowling explains that nothing in magic, not the resurrection stone, not Priori Incantatem, not the cleverest disenchantment can bring back what's taken. The result is a person who remains physically present but permanently unreachable, existing in a state between waking and emptiness. They cannot speak, recognize loved ones, make choices, or even react. They are present but no longer there. Basically the opposite of nearly headless Nick, who is very there. What makes this so disturbing is what it reveals about metaphysics in the wizarding world. The soul doesn't pass on, split, echo, or linger. It doesn't become a ghost, a memory, or a portrait. It simply stops existing in any form known to magic. That's why even Aurors and Azkaban officials call the kiss a punishment worse than death. Death moves the soul forward, somewhere, somehow. The kiss offers no afterlife at all. And if your soul survived this lesson, then you're officially ready for the next Advanced Hogwarts class. All 18 special and forbidden spells in Harry Potter explained. Click now before Filch sweeps your enthusiasm away like Voldemort's dust.